When is too much and enough going to be too much and enough with the exploding rates of autism? Autism rates are rising exponentially, with recent statistics estimating that 1 in 36 children are now on the autism spectrum, and much higher even for boys. And just 1 to 2 generations ago at most, it was 1 in 1,500. It's time to take this way more seriously and address the root causes of autism head on, instead of simply continuing to blame genetics and say, we don't know what's going on. If you or someone you know has a child with autism, undoubtedly as a parent, the first question you asked was, why? Specifically, is autism genetic? Still today, this is a long-held assumption that genetics and heritability must explain sharp increases in diagnosis and the wide variation in symptoms across the spectrum. However, we're here today to challenge that assumption and propose an empowering new perspective backed by emerging science. While genes do, of course, play a role through something called genetic predisposition, even traditional medical doctors and media outlets are now being forced to admit there is an environmental factor. While they pretty much leave it at that, a general blanket statement regarding the environment, we do the opposite. This video and all of our content will take you deep into the real root causes and known triggers of autism spectrum disorder. We now know that there is a full-on environmental perfect storm brewing for your kids struggling with autism, and genetics only plays a small role in that whole picture. This video is for parents and caregivers of children anywhere on the autism spectrum seeking clarity, community, and care options that dive deep into the real root cause of autism rather than merely calling it a genetic and hoping to work around the challenges autism presents. We'll explore evidence on genetic links to autism, why genes alone fail to explain recent rises in autism. Instead, we'll introduce what we call the perfect storm, where accumulated stressors and dysfunction disrupt nervous system function over months and years, altering childhood development. Parents will find drug-free answers to help their child's perfect storm. I'll never forget the first 3-year-old patient with autism I was able to care for, Evan. After 3 years of constant struggles with everything from sleep to sensory meltdowns, speech delays, motor tone, major motor tone stuff, and coordination challenges, constipation, chronic respiratory infections, and so forth, his parents took him in for a full-day neuropsych evaluation shortly after his 3rd birthday. It was here that they received his autism diagnosis and also were told, there's nothing you can do to help. His birth had nothing to do with it. His gut issues have nothing to do with it. Diet changes won't help. Get used to it and save your money, because one day he'll be older, he'll be bigger, and you'll need to put him in a home when you can't take care of him anymore. When parents ask why autism occurs, mainstream medicine often says better recognition, genetics, etc. They only recently finally started to admit that there is also a mix of environmental factors at play, but then offer little explanation or research behind that. While genetic factors are always at play for various conditions, we've known for nearly 2 decades now that genetics don't explain chronic illness all on their own. There is no single autism gene. Over 100 genes regulate risk, but mutations only appear in 10% of cases. This is where things get really fascinating, interesting, exciting, and frustrating all at the same time, because it's a multifactorial conversation and causes. Here's what we know about this perfect storm sequence or list of stressors and toxins. Prenatal or maternal stress is a big deal. Birth interventions and trauma are a big deal. Early exposure to antibiotics, medications, and toxins is a big deal. Then on top of all of these things, other clinical experiences and emerging research are starting to talk about things such as exposure to EMFs and chemicals in foods, soaps, detergents, etc., toxins and medications. These events lead to a neurological tipping point for many children, where they may be developing normally or mostly on track, and then once all this stress and toxicity adds up or stacks up, their nervous system gets locked into a sustained stuck fight or flight pattern of sympathetic dominance. Once the nervous system is shifted and stuck into this pattern, all of the development and general health functions are thrown off track. Gut and immune function, gross and fine motor movements, sleep, inflammation, and so much more. Once these challenges start to pile up, the brain and nervous system then get off track and begin to struggle with the core elements of autism: communication, social interaction, sensory processing disorder, restricted repetitive behavior, stimming, and so forth. If your child has an autism diagnosis and you've been told there is nothing you can do to help them heal because it's purely genetic, it's time to learn more about the role that environmental factors may have played and how your child really can heal and have a greatly improved quality of life. While mainstream medicine and media are finally admitting that there are environmental factors at play, they never dive deep and tell you what those truly are. To learn more about exactly what environmental triggers and perfect storm factors occur that can increase the risk of autism and contribute to its related challenges, click the link in our bio or read the full article, Is Autism Genetic?, and get the answers and drug-free action steps you deserve.